It is Thursday, the 28th of August. Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining me. We've got some windy weather on the way, along with colder airflows, thunderstorms, showers, and some sunny weather as well. Let's have a look at the satellite map. We've got plenty of thunderstorms out at sea, the squally showers that come in behind the main front. So the main front moving into the west coast, plenty of thunderstorms around Fiordland and southwestland, and that wet weather is going to slide up the coastline, and obviously these showers that are out at sea are also coming into the western side of the North Island. The bright yellow you see here in the east and central areas, that's mostly high cloud, dry weather as it bounces over the mountains. On the air pressure map, you can see the low pressure zones that yesterday were north of the country. As I said yesterday, they're going to drop southwards and then kind of merge into this larger pool of low pressure. Between all of these systems, though, we've mostly just got northwesterly winds. So it's fairly mild on Thursday evening around the country as that colder air does move into the South Island, but the northwesterly flow, obviously not as bad as the southerly that they've got over here in Tasmania. That is moving our way. But for tonight, northwesterly winds are in charge. So let's have a look at the thunderstorm risk. This is from this morning through till midnight Saturday. You don't really have to pay too much attention to exactly where the orange and the red blobs all are, but just sort of see the flow. It's coming from the west to the east, so I'll animate it now, timestamps here, but you're just generally seeing plenty of showers coming from the Tasman Sea moving into the country. Most of those will be on the western side. You'll obviously see more forming once they've passed over New Zealand, but most of those showers and thunderstorms are on the western side of the country, basically just showing we've got instability around over the days ahead. So here we are at lunchtime Friday, the polar change moving up the South Island. There is rain on the west coast, still a few thunderstorms in there, maybe a few thunderstorms around the western side of the North Island as well. Windy westerlies are blowing across the country, especially around the North Island. They'll tilt more southwest around the South Island, and while there might be some lower level snow flurries down to a few hundred metres, because of the pale blue shading, that's really at the lowest end of the key. So we're not expecting huge amounts of snow down to low levels. In fact, a lot of the pale blue you see just says the risk of a shower. You don't even necessarily have to have a shower, but that pale blue shows showers coming out of the Southern Ocean, so that is wintry stuff for the lower part of the country, and up here it's on the western North Island, there'll be heavier downpours as they come on through. So we've got some windy weather, lots of surges of it off and on over the next week, really ahead, but particularly over the next 4 or 5 days. So the areas in purple all the way down the main eastern ranges of the North Island, that's where we'll be seeing gusts over 110 kilometres an hour here and there, spreading out into parts of Wairarapa and Manawatu. Windy through the Cook Strait area, so if you're anywhere from Hawara over to Wanganui, down towards Horowhenua, all those areas getting those strong gusty winds off the sea. And on top of that, you've got those squally showers, maybe with a thunderstorm, that can locally boost the winds up even more, and a bit windy around the northwest corner of the South Island's ranges. Into Saturday, truly winter weather coming into Australia. We're on the, warmer side of things because we've got northwesterlies. So Saturday's going to feel spring-like in the North Island, especially if you're in Hawke's Bay, Gisborne areas, where you're at a west to northwesterly and hopefully the sun's out and it's a beautiful day, and even the temperature's starting to lift up a bit because as we go into Saturday, that nor'wester pushes the polar line back further southwards. But you can see there's a main southerly change coming through here. That is the big main wintry portion of it coming into Australia and the Tasman Sea. And so by Sunday, that wintry part comes into New Zealand. Now, it's not a direct southerly like they've got over in Australia. It's a southwesterly. And that slight lean does help add a couple more degrees to the temperature on what it could be. So even though it's a polar change coming right over the South Island, and that will move into the North Island as we go through Sunday, it's not too brutal. But for newborn lambs, rain plus cold, not a good setup. So just be aware of that, especially around the North Island. The winds in the south here may not be so bad as we go into the day. Windiest weather at the top of the country. In fact, here is the wind gust map. So wherever you see purple, if you're vision impaired, that is all along the western side of the North Island. We're talking about wind gusts of 90 to 100 k's an hour. And obviously once it interacts with the ranges and the hills, locally those winds can go even stronger. For example, around the Manukau Heads in Auckland, around the Kaimai Coromandel Peninsula Ranges, Mount Taranaki, and the eastern and central mountains of the North Island. So we're seeing gusty conditions there. Also around Cook Strait, southerly coming on in for Wellington. That's that wintry change coming. Jump to Monday, and southwesterly winds blowing for the North Island, not overly cold. The polar line being pushed southwards again. A lot of dry weather around the North Island, although western showers are going to be in the mix. As you come down to the South Island, not so much of a change for you. Raining on the west coast, snow falling along the southern Alps, and in Southland, wintry weather. Southland, Stewart Island, plenty of showers coming through, cold weather for you. But once you get into Canterbury, the reason why the blue line has that weird V shape is because the winds are blowing over the mountains, the nor'westers, and they'll help lift the temperatures up. So it's not too bad on Monday, but western areas and southern areas are going to be the coldest and the wettest. And then the next surge of wind. Like I say, this is off and on for days, this stuff. So purple is the portion that we're worried about. That's where you get power cuts and some wind damage. So that's again in the eastern ranges and the southern part of the North Island and around Cook Strait and the northern mountains of the South Island. They're going to be not too bad for the South Island, considering what you can get with a windy nor'wester. This isn't too bad, but it's worth monitoring as we go into Monday. And that could still change, those wind maps. They are moving around by 4 or 5 hours each day this week that I've updated on them. So there's still a bit of uncertainty about precise timing. Keep up to date with the Met Service warnings and of course the wind graphs we've got in our free app. So very windy on Tuesday, especially the lower North Island and much of the South Island, in the grip of a true spring-like westerly blowing through. Now the temperatures are still down around the South Island. That means snow flurries in the mountains and into some of the foothills. It doesn't look like a great deal of snow. And once you're into Canterbury, Marlborough, it's mostly dry for you. Into the North Island, it is still cold up to around Mount Taranaki Central Plateau. We may see a few snow flurries around those areas, but again, this is a westerly coming out of Australia. This is not a southerly out of Antarctica. So while it is cold in some areas, it's not brutally cold. Now, with newborn lambs, the cold is a problem, especially if it's wet as well as cold. Now, if you go to our free app or you go to our website, you can see, especially the Rural Weather website, which is also built into our free Weather Watch app, you can see the wind chill in all parts of New Zealand. So that may be very helpful if you're a farmer. Now, here is Wednesday's setup. Some big high pressure zones coming out of the Indian Ocean, out of Australia, and to the north of New Zealand, streaming along like that. Windy westerlies are on the bottom edge of those highs. So that's what we mean by like a spring westerly snaking along Australia and New Zealand, bringing us bursts of warm weather. Then as it turns more southwest, it gets colder. The blue line drops further southwards again on Wednesday. So it's still cold in southern areas, but it's not too bad. And westerlies for the North Island, dry weather. There'll be plenty of sunshine out for eastern areas and maybe the top of the country as well as we go to the middle part of next week. So a lot going on in the days ahead. This was sunrise where I am in West Auckland this morning. Beautiful bit of mist around. Noticed this morning how much earlier the sun's getting up, and certainly for the last couple of weeks, been noticing it in the evenings. The sun, the light dragging out till 6 p.m. or beyond that. Now, as we go into September, the days get longer. Each week gains 20 minutes more sunlight, roughly speaking, around New Zealand. That means in the 4 weeks of September, we gain a whole hour of extra sunlight. So you're going to really notice now the brighter mornings and the brighter ends to the day as our days start to get longer and longer. We're on the slide towards summer. That is all from me. I'll see you again tomorrow as we update you with the next 7-day rainfall outlook for New Zealand. I'll see you then.